Okay, good morning, everyone. We'll just be waiting for like 5 more minutes and then we can start. Good morning, Samreen.
Good morning. Hi. Am I audible?
Yeah. Yes, you are. So we'll wait for 5 more minutes and then we can start.
Right.
Samreen, if you could just mute yourself for just now for a while. Yeah, thank you. So good morning, everyone. I think, yeah, let's just wait for 1 or 2 more minutes and I think then we can go ahead with the webinar. I see Kamal sir and Mehta sir also here. Good morning to both of you.
Morning, Tushar. Good morning, Tushar.
So yeah, let's just wait for 1 or 2 more minutes and then we can start. Okay. So I think we can start with the webinar now. So a very good morning to all. My name is Architect Tushar Mandal and I am a teaching faculty at the Periyar School of Architecture, New Delhi. I welcome you all to the 11th webinar in the Every Friday webinar series, a platform for young minds to express their ideas. Today's webinar will be critiquing urban waste management system and will be presented by architect Samreen Sultan. So before introducing the speaker for today, I would like to introduce Professor Kamal Raj, who is the head of department of the school. Sir, if you could just say a few words to encourage and motivate us.
So I think it's a very relevant topic for today's times. We are all more interested in the glamorous field of urban issues, where we can showcase our creativity, talent. So most of the professionals are concentrating on those fields, which can give them glory and and express what their creativity is all about. But actually, this is the crux of the urban issue. The waste management, solid waste management is very, very important issue which the creative minds should also address, because they affect us all. So I think we learn more from this webinar. So let's start. Mehta sir has extensive experience, so he can contribute his thoughts also.
Thank you, Kamal. I think wonderful to have a young mind, as Kamal said, dealing with an issue which bothers us a lot, affects our health, affects our environment, affects plant material, birds. The complete ecosystem is actually disturbed by what we ourselves generate as waste. So we are looking forward to some new thoughts, new ideas, and we wish to carry forward those. Very warm welcome to Samreen and all the participants, Professor Kamal, Tushar. Get going. I think let's hear Samreen first. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Both Kamal sir and Mehta sir, thank you so much. So now we'll introduce our speaker for today's webinar, architect Samreen Sultan. Samreen is a PhD scholar currently working on urban morphology. She completed her B.Arch from the Faculty of Architecture and Acoustics, Jamia Millia Islamia, and has a master's in urban regeneration. She has worked with Abha and Randlamba and Studio, Ethos, and Delhi Urban Shelter Improvement Board in the past. Today, she will be talking about the Okhla Waste Management Zone, which is an urban void in Delhi. I would request Samreen to now begin her presentation.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Tushar, I hope I'm audible because I've just.
Yes, you're audible. You're audible.
All right, all right. So I will quickly share my screen and we'll start from there. All right. Is my screen visible to everyone?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay, so my work basically stems from the field work that I had done during my master's program in the Okhla waste management area. So just a quick disclaimer, I'm not a subject expert of waste management. However, when I was dealing with this particular site of the Okhla waste management area, which is sitting in one of the most posh locations of Delhi, initially the idea was to sort of understand the degraded land. And because I am a resident also of this place, so I was quite familiar with the kind of issues this place has. And always had this in my mind that why is it that such a great chunk of land which is right in the middle of the city is absolutely redundant and there's no use of it. And apart from that, the kind of pollution levels are not just something that one has to really refer to the facts. One can experience it while you're navigating through that site. So there were several issues in the first-hand issues that as a user, as a as a resident of this place, I could experience. And luckily, I at that point of time I was also pursuing my master's and was trying to pick up a topic for my thesis, which was in urban regeneration, where we basically deal with areas which are degenerated in nature because of various reasons. And my professors and everybody at the department also sort of supported me to take up this topic, which was not really done before. I mean, we had various degraded zones, but dealing with a degraded zone, which actually is one of the most important zones of not just Delhi, but also, I mean, if you understand the site, it's something which which has utmost significance because it has the three very important waste management plants. So infrastructure wise, it's one of the most significant, one of the most relevant sites. Then that one really cannot do without. So it's an important site. It has to be there. The importance is already established because it actually handles the city's waste. But at the same time, why is it that this site is actually one of the major contributors of pollution at the same time? So that was the kind of irony that this site really has, and I wanted to understand that and explore that. So from an urban from an urban regeneration point of view, I had started working on this site, and soon I realized that the problem is much larger. The problem is not what we see on the site. The problem is not the redundance of the site, not just the pollution which the site creates, but there is a larger problem behind it that one really sort of needs to look into. And so yeah, I mean, I'll start from this statement that we all feel that we have actually done away with our waste because we have the right plants to treat the waste in we already have these plants in existence. We have the incinerator which burns the dry waste. We have a sewage treatment plant which takes care of the domestic sewage. We have compost plants which take care of all the wet waste of the city, and we feel like, okay, fine, we have the plants, we have the right infrastructure in place, so something can be done about the kind of issues or challenges that one has in terms of waste management. But unfortunately, and with the help of this case also, you realize towards the end of this presentation that this waste management zone, the so-called waste management zone, which has all the plants to treat the waste, is not where the problem ends. It's rather a point where the problem begins. So it actually fuels the problem further. So we'll just try and understand it how it's happening. I had a short video which I wanted to play just to make you guys just to introduce the site to you, the approach, and the and how exactly like you. So I'll just be showing a few areas in this video so that you can see the type of site it is and the kinds of pollution, the kind of contamination which is already present on the land. So this is from where you enter. You enter from Mathura Road. This is the Okla STP colony, and there's a small colony over here which has all the service apartments for the workers of Okla STP. This is the oldest STP of Delhi, which was set up at the time of Britishers. So this lies in the southeast of Delhi in Zone F, and this is how the site looks like. There are several other colonies also of the Chamars, as they call it, along with the Okla STP, and it's surrounded with various unauthorized settlements like Shaheen Bagh and the Haji Colony and all, and various authorized ones also like Sarita Vihar and Sukhdev Vihar. This is the incinerator, which sits only like 35 meters away from the Sukhdev Vihar colony. They literally share a common wall with each other. These are a few places around the site. So you can get an idea of the kind of redundancy the land already has. These are all areas around the site. For about like about 15 to 20 acres of land is actually lying redundant with almost all sorts of pollution present on the land itself. So just wanted to understand and just wanted to analyze that what could be really done about it. So initially, when the site came into picture, it had very, very few settlements around it, few villages like Madanpur, Khadar, Jasula Gaon and all, very few population. You can see in the map also. I'll further show a few other maps also to substantiate this information, that how the population increased and how it became one of the most densified settlements in Delhi. So you can see the kind of waste which is lying over there on the roads itself. So it's actually very difficult to navigate through these roads, especially during rains. This is the Okla compost plant, which is right opposite to the Okla STP. It shares a common wall with Haji Colony. This entire thing is Haji Colony. So it's a complete mismatch between diffused urbanization pattern and the mainly centralized infrastructure systems, which are playing a very important role. This was an interview which I conducted with the residents. There was some error. I couldn't show the audio of this video. So I'll just read out the subtitles for you. So they're pretty used to the kind of pollution this place creates. They say that dust falls on their clothes and they're habitual of it now. And what can we do? They've sort of lost hope, and they in fact said that when you're standing here, you feel the fishy smell, but because we are so acclimatized to this zone, we are so habitual to it that the smell does not, we don't feel that stinky smell anymore. You as probably a newcomer would feel that why is this smell coming, that we don't feel it anymore because we are facing it day and night. Then they were just complaining about the plants and the condition of the plant and everything, and they were very much interested in if some efforts could be taken to regenerate the land and produce an active public space around it where their kids can go and play. And they also discussed the kind of diseases which they are suffering from, like pregnant women show that they have failed LFT tests, and I have the data with me from various hospitals like Apollo, Holy Family, and all. And of course, the real estate values are also dipping, have been dipping for a while. It has a straight connection with the timeline of these plants. The moment these plants actually, gradually these plants were set up. Initially, it had the Okla STP, then the Okla compost plant came up, then further the Jindal incinerator, and as time passed, as these plants came into picture, we realize that there has been a dip in the real estate value as well. This is right in front of the Okla incinerator. It's absolutely filled with all the trucks all the time. I mean, 24/7 you have trucks over here on this road. So it's a complete. I mean, I would say a site which really needs a lot of attention, a site which really needs a lot of reworking, a lot of revamping, and a lot of reconfiguration, so as to be not just to able, so that we're not just able to solve the problem of pollution. You can see the kind of pollution it has already on the site, but also to sort of understand that how can we really reuse this space. So that was the initial idea that I had when I was starting off with my thesis, and I had a few solutions also to rectify that problem. But today I would be discussing the larger problem which I sort of realized when I was doing this research, which is the problem of waste management, which is the problem of the fact that we've not been able to identify the kind of waste we produced in an Indian context, and we've not been able to identify the composition of waste, and therefore the approach needs to be changed. The approach needs to be looked into. So these are the outlets of Okla STP. I am showing it over here because I did a very rigorous exercise of sampling and testing the water in the STP outlet. It further gets connected to the Jasola drain. So I had collected samples from Jasola drain as well, and a few samples from the houses which are around the Jasola drain where you have the submersible done, because from there I could actually do a testing of groundwater as well. So these things are there, and testing was actually done to sort of understand the kind of pollution level it has, and to also check and to, because like when I checked with the CPCB reports and everything, the values that it shows were absolutely like matching with the right. I mean, it matches the standard. So I really wanted to understand that whether it was true or not, because there were further problems. The interview spoke a very different story. People over there speak a very different story. They have waterborne diseases, airborne diseases. So it was important to sort of understand and check whether these problems, why, if these problems are there, then why are these problems there, and what is the root cause of it. So being an architect, it was a little difficult at that point of time, but then I got in touch with a few civil engineers in the civil engineering department of Jamia. Professor Gauhar Mahmood, who's the head of the department of the civil engineering department. And in our course also, we were taught that if we have to get into allied fields also to get the problem solved if it's required. So I could get the access to the laboratories, and there I could conduct the tests and everything with his help. And the figures that we got really showed stacking. Like there was a stark difference in the actual figures and the figures which are mentioned in the standards and in the CPCB report and all the pollution control board reports. So I would be discussing that also. I mean, I would be showing you the testing experience, and be sharing that with you, and then then further the presentation would transcend into the larger issue of waste management and how and what we can do about it. So these are just a few snapshots to show you that initially this kind of a vision I had for this place. I had picked up a few certain areas, and I just thought that maybe we can do something. Or this is the place where the incinerator lies, and that's the vision that the society, the residents of this colony hold. And this is how the road looks like. So definitely something could be done about this as well. So there's a lot of scope in this site, I feel. And I'm just like taking one step at a time, and let's see where we can go from here, and what kind of solutions we can look into, especially the implementable solutions. Everything is not possible, of course, overnight, but then it has to start from somewhere. So I'll just get the presentation. I'll just start with my presentation now. All right. So we all know that solid waste generation is an issue in India, and we have seen that over a period of time, with years, the solid waste generation has only increased with the wealth of the cities, and it would further increase only. I mean, we have the stats with us for the next few years, for the next 10 years, 20 years, 2041 taka data I have here, which is all the sources report on sustainable solid waste management in India from Columbia University. And each year, around 10 million tons of garbage is generated in metropolitan cities such as Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Hyderabad, Bangalore, and Kolkata. Out of the total municipal waste which is collected, 94% of the waste is dumped on land, and only 5% of it is it's composed or composted, or we can say it's treated. So the figures are they are speaking. They are a reflection of the kind of problem we have in terms of waste generation, and waste generation growth is actually outspacing the population growth by 2-3 times, which of course was visible in the figures that I've shown. So this is how the site looks like. The central portion over here, which is marked in red, is the Okla waste management site, which in total has an area of about 60 to 70 acres, and it mainly has 3 plants. And you can see in the map that it has various settlements around it. But initially, in the old maps, you can find that this Okla waste management site only had one plant with the very basic rudimentary technology, and there were a few villages around it, like Jasola Gaon, Madanpur Khadar, and small little settlements. And at that point of time, in 1930s, it was a good fit. It was one could actually plan a public utility or a site to treat waste over here. But then as urbanization happened and densities of the settlements increased, settlements also happened, and not just informal settlements, but we actually have planned settlements in this place. We have Sukhdev Vihar, we have Sarita Vihar. So this is not something that which just happened by chance. There were proper planned settlements around the landfill, around this waste management zone. So somewhere we've gone a little wrong with the siting of the site as well, because we didn't really anticipate at that point of time that it will develop into one of the most densified heavy residential colonies of Delhi, and the waste management site would be literally sandwiched by these densified settlements. So that's one problem. And you can see that in the map of 1995, the plant is over here marked in gray, and you can see in this base map that the footprint of the settlement was not as high. But now in the current situation, I mean, just look at Abul Fazal and Shaheen Bagh. That in itself has a population of around 3 to 4 lakhs. So and it's all informal. And right in front of the waste management zone, you have the Sola Vihar, DDA flats. You have Sarita Vihar, then you have Sukhdev Vihar on the left. Then you have the entire Jamia University, Gafar Manzil, Jori Farm, Okla Vihar, all these informal settlements over here. Not just that, but it also has some one of the the most significant hospitals in Delhi. It has Escorts, it has Fortis, it has Holy Family. New hospitals have also come up, like Al Shifa and Sarojini. So these problems are there, and one needs to recognize these problems. Yeah. So this is the timeline of the Okla waste management zone. Firstly, the Okla STP came up in 1930. Then the first phase of Okla STP was set up with very basic rudimentary technology. Then in the third phase, Okla STP had expanded. And further, it kept on expanded till 1995. And we see that there's when I actually visited the plant, I could actually read into the reports, and we found out that that rudimentary technology, the basic biodigesters which were installed by the Britishers, they're still in place and they're still working. I won't say working fine, but then they're still using it. So the advancements in technology that was actually required in this place didn't really happen over a period of time. They only kept on increasing the number of plants, but they didn't do anything about the older ones which they had. And that the plants of phase 1 and phase 2 is actually the ones who are treating waste for about 2-3 pumping stations that they collect from 2-3 pumping stations. So there are like around 5 to 6 pumping stations, and initial pumping stations that were set up, uska waste is being treated by the older biodigesters still. So of course, like when there is a problem in technology, it will result in all forms of, so the outlet of the drain that we have will eventually have some problems. The kind of discharge that we have in the Jasola drain also will definitely have issues of pollution, because there is a gap in the technology that one can identify. Again, later on, there was a biomedical waste incinerator which was introduced in 2007, and it literally, like, it was like, you can say that standing at this biomedical incinerator, you could see all the colonies of Sukhdev Vihar. So Sukhdev Vihar people were really agitated at that point of time, and they had filed a lot of writ petitions, and they somehow managed to get this biomedical waste incinerator demolished. But at the same time, when you actually get an incinerator demolished, the soil, it leaves the soil degraded to a level, the kind of pollution that it creates on the soil, the land contamination that really happens after the demolition of a biomedical incinerator is something that takes around 30 to 40 years to heal properly, because the soil is completely degraded. It has high levels of mercury, arsenium, and all these metals. And there are various processes to treat the soil, but in essence, the soil is extremely polluted, extremely contaminated, and has so many public health issues. And I mean, of course, like, you have these informal colonies around it, like Haji Colony and Jasola Gaon and all these places where people don't really have those kind of open spaces where they can just go. Not everybody has an access to a sports complex or to a to parks as well. I mean, you don't really have planned parks in these informal colonies. So wherever they're finding an open space, they would just go and sort of use it in their own way. You have kids playing cricket and all these things in this particular site, which was once a biomedical incinerator. So of course, they're not realizing the kind of health impact it has. But fortunately, this incinerator was shut down. But then again, in 2013, another incinerator came into place, which is again very, very controversial. People are talking about it. People are protesting against it. But the last information that we've got from NGT is that the case has been dismissed, and it is functioning here. It will continue to function here. So it's still an ongoing fight with the residents of Jasola Vihar. This is the Okla compost plant. The picture in itself shows, gives you a fair idea of the kind of pollution this place is creating. And this is, I'll just, emphasize on the fact, and I'll just say it again, that it's one of the most hygienic ways to treat waste. Because we have a lot of wet waste generation in our cities, and it's supposed to be the best way of treating waste. And you can see the condition in which the plant is in right now. And I mean, we all just by looking at the picture, we can say that it's definitely not working. It's not working in the right direction, because this is not what we expect when we say that it's the best way or the most hygienic way of treating waste. Literally, waste coming out of the fences, out of the boundaries of the plant. And you can see the kind of birds and everything. And the birds are just not like over there, they're picking the waste and they're literally spreading it throughout in all the colonies you have around it. So it's a complete menace right now. There is this incinerator over here, and right in front of the incinerator, you have ponds of fly ash ponds, you have dry sludge. I mean, if I can say so, you just name the pollution, you just name the type of pollution, and you'll find it there. So this place is like a hub of all the different types of pollution which is available, or with that you've heard about. So the World Bank again, because, and there are several issues around with why this is happening. You can see this picture has been taken from the terrace of Sukhdev Vihar, and the pollution is quite visible over here. This is the chimney of the incinerator. One of the major issues why you see this kind of a pollution is also because the chimneys are supposed to be at least 70 meters. The stack height is supposed to be 70 meters, but this comes in the landing zone of the Delhi airport, and therefore it has height restrictions. They could not go beyond 60 meters. And one can just understand that, when you are actually reducing the height, you are compromising with the technology. You are somehow changing or altering the technology, and when you are doing that, of course you will not have the best of the results, and hence the pollution that it creates. And over here you can see that this was the place where the biomedical incinerator was there, which is now demolished, and right in front of that you have the new incinerator, the Jindal incinerator, and it's literally just 35 meters away from the boundary line of Sukhdev Vihar colony. This is the Sukhdev Vihar colony. So there are definitely issues with the siting of these different plants. Okay, another very interesting issue is that these three different plants are have different land ownerships, and they are run by different agencies. So initially, in the when MSW 2016 rules, also they have called Okla Waste Management Site as an integrated zone wherein they would be working mutually with each other. When I say mutually, basically the Okla compost plant, if it, because we know that we receive mixed waste, we don't receive segregated waste. So all the mixed waste that goes to the Okla compost plant, usme se jitna bhi whatever dry waste content would be there, they'll send it to Jindal incinerator. Further, Jindal incinerator, whatever wet waste it receives, they'll probably send it to the Okla compost plant. And similarly, the STP, because when it receives domestic sewage, I mean, when I interviewed the officials over there, they even said that sometimes they receive a lot, along with the domestic sewage, they receive a lot of plastic bags, and because there are loopholes in the planning in all these things, so they've received plastic bags, they've received injections, and all sorts of different types of waste, hazardous waste. So that also they need to sort of segregate, and they were told that they have to send it to the Okla to the Jindal incinerator. So that was how this so-called waste management zone was planned, and they were supposed to work mutually with each other. But then eventually that's not happening on the side. These land ownership agents and the land ownership agencies had some kind of a tip with each other, and they're not working mutually with each other. So whatever waste the Okla incinerator received, which is of course mixed waste, they just burn it as it is, because so a lot of wet waste along with the dry waste gets burned. And when wet waste gets burned, the kind of pollution it creates is in the form of dioxins and furans, which are the most famous pollutants, and they what they cause is nothing less than a public health emergency. So I mean, all the diseases like cancer, bronchitis, and all the deadly diseases are caused by the discharge of these gases. And one really cannot help it, because they're not really, the technology, even if it's present, it's not working in the working very finely. And there are not just administrative issues around it. I mean, these are just administrative issues which are present on the site. But of course, the major issue that we'll be talking about, would be coming in the oncoming slides. So this is just a mapping of all the types of pollutions that you have on the site. You have demolition construction waste, you have the sludge chambers, scum in the drain, solid waste dumping on the site. You have an abandoned waste to energy plant, which again has a lot of soil which is contaminated in nature. Then you have the defunct digesters which were installed at the time of British era. They are still there, adding to more waste. And you have the derelicts of the biosurgical incinerator, which again is a form, which has become a form of another type of pollution. So these are just a few pictures to show you the different types of pollution that exist on the site. I'll be talking about the Okla STP first. I had gone into the details of, so I just picked up like one plant at a time just to understand the kind of problems it has and the kind of impact those problems are creating. The idea initially started off when I actually interviewed people in the Chamar colony and in the service departments of the Okla STP, and also in Haji colony. And we found out that not many people are suffering from waterborne diseases like cholera, diarrhea, typhoid and all. And the figures actually, the figures that you get from these hospitals like Apollo, Holy Family and all also validate the information. So I just sort of mapped all the existing pumping stations we have already, which the Okla STP is catering to. They are marked in red over here. And we have a few proposed pumping stations as well in the 2021 and now in 2040 master plan, in which they have actually augmented the capacity. So earlier it was 170. Now they have the plans of augmentation is 131 mgd. So they're planning to increase or expand the plans by adding newer technology to it. However, if you see the outlet of the drain, so this is how, if I try and explain you this in the map, this is the outlet of the Okla STP, which further gets connected to just through the Jasola drain. That further gets connected to Agra Canal, and Agra Canal, as you all know, further gets connected to Yamuna River. So whatever I'm showing this section to make you guys understand the kind of impact it has. It's not just limited to a small drain which is right in front of the outlet. It further reaches Yamuna. And if this outlet is polluted, I won't say like it's the major cause of pollution of Yamuna River, but then it definitely adds to the pollution of Yamuna. So the problem again is it's a bigger problem over there. So I had actually collected a few samples from here. This is the Jasola drain, and we got it tested in the laboratories, and we found out that the MPN count levels, pH levels, BOD level, TDS levels, and COD levels definitely didn't match the standard of latest gazette of drinking water in India, and it also didn't match the levels which are permissible in the CPCB board. So that was one problem, because of which, of course, a lot of diseases are happening, and a lot of waterborne diseases are you can witness a lot of people suffering from waterborne diseases in the nearby areas. Apart from that, a very interesting finding was that this STP is supposed to treat only domestic sewage. It undergoes a process of aerobic digestion. But however, like when I was going through the reports and everything, and also when I did the testing of the sludge, I didn't directly do the testing of the sludge, but I got the reports from a few PhD scholars in the civil engineering department who are already working on converting sludge into manure, and then putting it to purpose. So got in touch with them and got the figures for the sludge testing reports, and it shows high content of arsenic, mercury, and copper. So it was, really wanted to sort of find out that why the sludge is so poisonous, because sludge apparently is one of the major resources that we have. It can be used as manure, and when we interviewed a few farmers in this area. I mean, I even interviewed my Mali of Jamia University, and he said that even if I get that sludge for free, I wouldn't use it as manure because it really kills my harvest. So people are seeing these kind of things. Farmers are very, they're not too happy with the quality of sludge, and they don't want to take it for free also. There definitely is a problem. Like, you have such huge amounts of dry sludge lying right in front of the plant, which can be used as a resource which can be used for farming in so many areas. Apparently, the STP shows that they send the treated sludge to the solar parks and a few DDA parks and all. But then all these facts and figures are there on papers, and definitely they send the treated amount, but all of it is not treated, and most of it is just thrown out of the site. So one of the reasons I could find out was that when I was reading through the report of the pumping stations, there was one pumping station which was marked in the map, but it was not written in the document. So that was the industrial untreated effluent outfalling into the Sarita Vihar drain, which is next to the Okla Industrial SPS. So just visited that area and found out the exact point where this outfalling is. So there is a gap over there. Also, you can see this industrial sewage, industrial waste, which is an outfalling in from the Sarita Vihar drain. It directly gets connected to the Okla STP. They say that they say that these problems are there, but it's adding to a very negligible kind of the amount of figures that gets manipulated or gets altered is very, very negligible. That's what they say. But then the problem is there. I mean, if you are putting industrial sewage in the plants which are supposed to treat domestic sewage, there would be consequences of that. Then this is the Okla compost plant which came up in 2000. It treats about 200 tons of waste. So when I actually visited the plant and I tried to understand that what kind of what kind of problems are there in the plants, then The major problem over here was that they could not find the appropriate land which was required for this for the making of this plant, and they because they could not find the area, they just dug a pit, and in that pit they usually aggregate all the waste. And when they turn the waste, like every once in a week they turn the waste, and that's the point where really when a lot of smell comes in, and that's the time when a lot of methane is produced, hydrogen disulfide is produced, and that rotten egg smell is something that we as residents can also experience. Not just that, it actually killed the kind of biodiversity that the place had in the very beginning, and now it only has two types of birds over here. Um, the Okla incinerator again has really affected the biodiversity and the kind of biodiversity and the kind of the birds that actually have a migration path, it comes under that also, of the Okla bird sanctuary, and that really gets affected. So there are several issues with the incinerator also. I won't get into the details of this. Let's just come quickly to the kind of solutions that one can look at to treat these problems. So the fundamental nature of waste is something that we've not been able to understand, and we keep on proposing new incinerators, new landfill sites, because our waste is of a different kind. We produce a lot of wet waste. The composition is like 50% is inert waste and 30% is compostable matter. 20% is burnable. Further, it all the burnable one and the inert one goes into the landfill site, and of course, coming up with the landfill site is also not a very good idea, because we don't really have engineered landfill sites in India. Right now, we cannot really afford or fund that kind of a development also. So we really have to get away with the idea of landfill sites in which you have, we have huge landfill sites in Delhi, in Delhi and other cities as well. There are a few cities who have been able to fight the problem quite well, because they've understood the very nature of our waste. And I'll be taking a few references from those cities. So, like cities like Alleppey, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, Goa, Panaji, Mysore have been able to do a really good job. And Sunita Narayan has been doing a lot of work on this, and she says that it's important to turn the waste story around, and she's been able to do that in 28 cities. The latest works have been done in Agra. For example, in the case of LLP, what they did is that at the community level itself, they introduced a lot of biogas plants, biomethanation plants, and they had a lot of sanitation drives, awareness programs, which really worked out well for them. Sensitizing people was one of the ways by which they could actually create door-to-door awareness campaign and door-to-door collection. And the compost bins, the compost bins and all were actually introduced at the community level itself. And in the case of Mysore, they had started this very interesting kind of a program in which they had created awareness in the maids, and the maids were actually asked to come and deposit all the organic waste of the households where they're working, and they were giving a tipping amount for that. The government was giving a tipping amount to the waste, and also it was a little interesting. It was a little strategic here, because, I mean, mostly like middle class population would not be interested in collecting the waste and coming and depositing it on the site, because they don't have the time, and it will actually cause a dent in their pocket if they'll actually leave their 9 to 5 job and do this kind of a work. So it was a little easy for them to convince the maids to do it, and of course they were getting paid for it, and for them, like, it was a motivation for them, because they were getting a lot of time to sort of interact with each other also. So it was a very it's something which I feel is quite doable in this area as well. I mean, we cannot really replicate what has been done in Mysore, because the scale of Delhi is very different. The scale of the ward of Mysore is also very different from the ward of Delhi, the different wards of Delhi. But of course, definitely it can be done at the neighborhood level. Then again, Panjim, Goa, and Indore is something that we can emulate these kind of solutions over here. Closed recycling is something that we should definitely look at, because the more categories you are able to build, the more properly you'll be able to treat your waste or manage your waste. Because not every plastic is burnable plastic, not every plastic is recyclable plastic. There are several categories of plastic also, and all these cities have been able to segregate them and label them into different categories, separate categories, and the kind of detail they have in segregating their waste is something which has done wonders for them. And I think that's one thing we should look at, and that can only come if we can educate people to really sort of understand that we have different types of waste, in wet waste also, in wet waste category, in dry waste category, and all these different categories. So this, these details are something that I also sort of I came across them because I was looking into these cities, but we don't really have any boards or any kind of signages or any kind of these are the kind of things that one can just put in the streets and make people aware of it. At least they'll know what kind of segregation plans can be made. So the source recovery model is again one thing that we can learn from, that they have aggregation facilities and sorting stations in at the community level itself, which where I think we somewhere lack, and we don't have these kind of things, and that awareness is also not there. So these are some scalable solutions that I have, that we can practice community composting, we can practice community biomethanation, we can practice house composting, house biomethanation, maids associations, self-help groups, then retail segregation and labeling. Defining categories comprehensively is one major step that we really need to take. This is when I interviewed Dr. Shamla Maniji, who's the director of public health department in NIUA. She started the practice at her own place. She started making compost at her own place by using terracotta bins, in which she actually makes manure out of the organic waste. Then an attitude, behavioral change is something we really need to have. Like, she has a bang hung in a convenient place where she's already separating all the dry waste. So, and a few solutions that which are very, very site oriented. I have discussed the ones which I feel is a little doable, especially the Okla waste, especially the drain that we have, the solar drain, because I was already in touch with the ward councillor when I was doing my thesis along with Gohar sir, and we had a talk that there is a possibility that we can actually do something about the contaminated water that we have in the drain, by treating it, by putting up the right kind of plants and fish species and all those things over there. So that was in process, but then somehow it lost track because, like, immediately after that COVID happened, it didn't take the right kind of it didn't pace up after that, but hopefully that should be done. These are just the calculations that I probably did to sort of understand how much of a how much of cost would be invested to clean the site, and further how much of a revenue can we generate out of it, because we have all these sludge and we have a lot of resource on the site. If it's treated properly, we can actually produce a lot of methane. We can actually fill like around 5,000 cylinders, gas cylinders, which would not suffice all the need of the people around, but then with a few LPG cylinders, we can still reach a certain level. Then similarly, like, phytoremediation is something which is a long-term exercise that one can do. So, these things are there, these solutions are there, but we're still trying to find a way how it can be implemented on the site. So this is the drain that I'm talking about. This, I feel, is a little doable right now, because I'm already in touch with the ward councillor to sort of get something done on this particular area. Yeah. So thank you, and that's pretty much it.
Thank you so much, Samreen. It was an engaging and informative presentation. So participants can now ask questions. You can also post your questions in the group if you want. So before we take questions from the participants, I would request if Mehta sir had a few words to say about the presentation itself.
Let's take questions first. Yeah.
Okay. So yes, if any participant has any question, then you can please go ahead and unmute yourself and ask the question. Or you can also write. Yes, please go ahead. If you could just give us brief introduction of yourself and then go ahead with the question. Thank you.
Right. I am Sanobar. I also went to Jamia for my undergrad. Right now I'm doing my master's in Columbia University. So thank you, Samreen, for that presentation. It's a very comprehensive project. But since you're talking about waste management systems, what do you think of such infrastructure from an environmental justice point of view? Like, race and class have already been widely studied as factors in the disproportionate siting of hazardous facilities near minority and low-income neighborhoods. And this is something that happens worldwide. And even though the settlement grew around the plant in your project, in one case, after the facility came into existence, it's important to note that most of the growth closest to the site has been of informal settlements and essentially ghettos. So the effect on minorities is its unintended consequence in the end. So how do you begin to address the underrepresentation of marginalized communities in the planning process of such facilities?
Okay. Thank you, Sanobar, for this question. In fact, that's a very important aspect I wanted to discuss during my presentation, but because of lack of time, I just sort of skipped it. There's a very interesting book called Not in My Backyard, which is written by Sunita Narayan, which I think you should also look into, where she's actually talking about this issue that, it's high time when the poor, when the unprivileged section of the society comes out and actually reclaims that land and says that, this is something which is not supposed to be there in my backyard. So that's the problem which is there. You can see that even the Gazipur landfill side, the Okla waste management side, although it has a few DDA settlements around it, but then we cannot ignore the fact that the most populated settlements that are around it is Haji Colony, Jasola Gaon, and Okla Vihar, and all these settlements. And there's a reason why this thing has happened. There's a pattern to it because the poor have not been able to voice their opinions for the longest time. And in the cities where they've been able to solve the problem of waste, for example, in Mysore or in Goa, there this underprivileged society actually came out and they really, took charge of things. And they said that this is something which is not supposed to be there in my backyard, because rich, of course, has that kind of a power that they could, they have their own ways to deal with these kind of problems, and it has never been there in their backyard. So uh, how they have been trying to solve this problem is that when the poor actually came out and they said that, this is something which we are not supposed to have in our backyard. So uh, and then again she tried to change the waste story, and she tried to flip it around, in which waste is not just, seen as something which is there's a lot of stigma attached to waste. And we don't really want to go near these areas which has waste accumulation, or the landfill sites and all these things, which is of course, we have valid reasons for that, it's polluting and all. But then the kind of vision this lady holds for the waste, for treatment of waste of India, is that she's actually trying to convert it into resource. She's actually trying to come up with the right hygienic ways of treating that waste, in which and she's been able to do that in Mysore and Goa, where these community parks are the ones where maximum waste compostable waste is collected, and it has resulted in some very usable public active spaces around it, gardens around it. And therefore, when you change that ideology that waste is something which is stigmatized in nature, you change that kind of a mind. The mindset change is something required, where you can actually come and say, even the rich can participate in this and say that, okay, fine, this is supposed to be there in my uh, not in my backyard but in my front yard. So that is the kind of attitude change we really need to sort of have in the cities which are a little far behind when it comes to waste treatment also. And we have a few good examples where cities have been able to do that. So really, that kind of an ideological change is something that we require to have, in which and that's, I think, the only solution, how we can bridge this gap, wherein only the underprivileged society or the poor sections are the ones who are facing the consequences of the landfill sites and everything, when the rich would also accept it and say that we want to have that waste composting, and we want to have those solutions of waste right in front of our eyes, in our front yard and not in our backyard. So it's a long struggle, it's an ongoing process, but I feel like people have addressed it. CSE has been doing a lot of work around it, and let's hope it goes further on from there.
Okay, thank you, Sanobu, for the question.
Thank you.
So if anybody else wants to ask a question, then please feel free to go ahead. You can unmute yourself and ask the question. Is there anybody who wants to ask a question next? If not, then maybe I can ask a question to Samreen. So, you have been talking about these sort of scalable solutions, and for example, you talked about some particular on-site solutions, for example, the drain, cleaning the drain and that. But could you, for example, just give a bit more detail on because see, if we want to clean the drain, then it's not like, for example, it's not possible that that you and me can go and say we can do that unless and until we get permissions from relevant authorities, right? So the question here comes at how do we approach the authority, or how do we get the process started? So if you could give a bit more, like if you could talk a bit on that aspect as well.
Okay, so See, honestly, Tushar, that's one problem that I've also been struggling with for the past few years, because the right way of doing it would be to get in touch with STMC, because that's the that's the agency that has the ownership of this particular drain in Jasola. But then somehow, I got in touch with a few scholars who are already working on that site, and they said that they had tried to approach SDMC, but nothing really worked out in their favor. So the next thing that we could do was if we could think of some solution at the local level. And through my Professor Gaur Mahmood, I got in touch with Manish, who's not the ward councillor. His wife is the ward councillor of Jasola, but he's mainly taking care of all the functioning and everything. And he was quite interested in the project because he realized that we could actually sensitize him the kind of impacts that this, the contaminated water in this drain has, because we had done a few testings of the groundwater where submersible was done in the nearby Jasola Gaon and Haji Colony, and we could see that the water, since it percolates, and the soil infiltration rate is also pretty high in this area because it's an ecological sensitive zone. So he realized that it's a problem that groundwater is getting affected. So he was quite interested in funding at least this small little intervention, wherein we would give him all the research related. We will give the design for it. We'll give the right kind of species which are to be planted, the cheaper ones. And it's not something which I would say is a very major kind of a solution, but at least it's a step that one can take towards, cleaning the area. So we can start off with the drain, because that's what, fortunately or unfortunately, that's something we could get our hands on in the first place.
Okay, thank you. So we'll take a few more questions if anybody wants to ask.
If there is none, then maybe I have a.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Samreen, tell me one thing. Do you think there is a complete failure on the part of urban managers that what is going wrong, somebody else needs to tell them? They do not have their own standards to measure and update and correct. Is that the problem? Because you see, unless we identify the root cause of the problem, knee-jerk reactions of public which suffers on account of anything which a municipal authority or urban manager is not doing is not sustainable. So, can you elaborate on that?
Right. So this is in fact a little confusing for me as well, because in places where they've been able to fight the problem of waste are the ones where the local governance has been revamped and the municipalities are only taking care of it. The standards, they have the same standards that we have in Delhi, but somehow those cities have been able to fight the problem, because I feel like the communities were very much like more aware. They were sensitized better. The literacy rate was also definitely different. That could be one of the reasons. But in these places, like suppose in the case of Delhi, I have not worked very closely with any of the municipalities or any of. I'm not someone who's practiced in the field of urban management, so I cannot really pinpoint the problem specifically. But then definitely there needs to be the policy change, of course, was addressed much before, and they are talking about segregation of waste. Earlier, like there was a graph that that I had shown in my presentation also, in which they said that almost 70 to 60% of the cities are actually up the bar, like they've been able to treat their waste. But in the footnotes, the definition of treatment was not segregation of waste and all these things, but the definition of treatment said that it's basically collection of waste and then disposing that waste into the landfill site. So there needs to be I definitely feel that there needs to be a correction and rectification in the very basics that we have. The definition of treatment is supposed to change. First of all, it's not just collection of waste and then dumping it in the landfill site. It's basically segregation of waste and then completing that cycle of circular economy, wherein we are giving it back in the same manner. So I'm just guessing like that's one of the few problems that we have. But I cannot really pinpoint and blatantly blame these organizations, because they are the ones in different cities, in other cities. They've been able to do a really good. They've been able to do a remarkable job in terms of segregating waste and completing the cycle. So yeah, that's what I think about it.
Tushar, in case there is any other question, you can take. Otherwise, I have another question.
Okay, so is there, I don't see any questions on the group, but if anybody else wants to ask a question, then you can please go ahead, unmute yourself and ask. There does not
There
seem
is
to be
none.
so.
You see,
Yeah, there
my
does not seem to be so.
point I was making is that what are the standards?
What are the standards? The standards by CPCB and different pollution control boards have different standards. For example, CSRI has the standard for air pollution, and for water pollution, we have different standards from the various boards. So yeah, these are the standards which they say are being met when these plants are running. But eventually, because of the kind of testing reports and everything that was found out later, it didn't really match the right. And also, I think there's a very interesting kind of a finding which I did when I was doing my thesis, that the standards are also pretty low as compared to the standards that we have in the other countries, like for municipal solid waste only. And there are
Yeah, fine.
yes,
So I think the first and foremost thing is analyzing the standards and setting them right if they are not. Because
absolutely.
any activity of any kind of a citizens movement or anything actually should be a last resort in urban management. The city's governance under our constitution, the responsibility to deal with waste management lies with municipal authorities. So we need to check whether we do not have proper standards. That could be one. If they are not proper, then that is the correction we need to do. Second is whether those are getting implemented properly or not. And third is our aspirational issues. So if our aspirations are not assessed by lawmakers, then the problem lies there. On and off issues, because this is something which is known to everyone that it is an environmental hazard, it is an environmental issue. So we can't be picking up case by case and running around.
Right.
What we need is good standards. So if good standards are in place, then we will talk about implementation. And then, of course, a continuous evolving upgradation. So that's the point I thought, because we...
Yes, absolutely. So there is a stark difference in the standards that we have in an Indian context, and if we compare it to the standards that we have
in the contemporary time, do we have the best standards? It is not copying what is doing West is doing. We have our waste, which is completely different than what other countries have. So a copy paste will not work.
Absolutely.
And it is a cultural issue, cooking habit. There are so many things involved. So unless we have a good plan and good standard, and then of course implementable or implementation strategy, I feel that is how we
True,
need to
true,
approach
very true, sir. We have a very different kind of waste. In fact, the kind of organic waste also that we produce, it's one of a kind. All this cooked rice, sambar, and all these things are the best feed for manure. So these kind of things are supposed to be, I think, relooked into and analyzed a little better, so that we can definitely work upon and probably alter or better our standards, which are very very contextual in nature and need based. So absolutely, I agree with it.
Okay. Thank you, sir, and thank you, Samreen. So I think I would like have one last question if anybody wants to ask.
Yeah, good morning.
Okay, good morning,
This is
sir.
S.N. Ahmed here. First of all, I congratulate Periyari School of Architecture for having such a good seminar and topics and such a wonderful speaker on that. Good job. I was listening very carefully, though it's my not regular subject. I'm into the automotive industry. We're also responsible to generate such kind of pollution. And this is all happening because of chaos and misunderstanding of the lawmakers. We don't have infrastructure. We get a license to produce, set up a factory. But where to dispose those kind of things? There's no infrastructure nearby. So when we are getting a license, we have to tap those problems from there. What kind of a product, what kind of discharges we are going to have. So, Mr. Mehta, I forgot his name, Mr. Mehta, yeah. He was rightly said that we have to set right the standards and then monitor it. So we have to set right standards, of course, but we have to start with the now minimal level of road, link into the roadmaps. What is first, infrastructure or habits? Because we are talking about this marginalized population who are affected on that. Because they don't have any choice. They have to settle down nearby because they don't see this land available for them. But these are all migrated people.
Right.
So absolutely, we have to look into that. Like I have seen few of the clips on this incinerators and this your garbage storage and all. They don't have any earmarking. People should be not freely able to reach there. Those kind of controls are not there. So anybody finds a suitable place to live and standard, they're satisfied with that. They need what they need is the work ki roti. So that becomes their livelihood. तो वो उनके पास कोई और ऑप्शन नहीं रहता है. ये हम लोगों के साथ इंडस्ट्री को भी देखना चाहिए. Of course, politicians has to see that. Lawmakers has to look into that. Municipal corporations are there. Why they are throwing this and dumping it everywhere? वो करना चाहिए. But of course, we have to start those things, and we have to start from not my backyard, from my frontier,
Frontier.
which has to be visible. What I am doing it. So why I raised the infrastructure? If you see this, the moment we land into T3, we see the infrastructure and we behave like good gentlemen. And when we come out from the T3, we don't see an infrastructure. The first thing we throw it out the tickets, out of the dustbin. So this I think we have to understand where it has to start. We can definitely, Samreen has done a very good job identifying those issues and the reasons and the solutions also. But who is going to build the cat? Yes, I congratulate Periyar School if they can initiate and bring those kind of topics regularly and also invite some of these lawmakers and some local authority to enter into these solutions.
Right.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Ahmed.
Thank you very
I
much.
think your comments are very valuable, and it gives all of us a clue that these things need to be carried forward. And wherever there is an issue where urban managers or lawmakers need to take first step, it's in their court, then I think they need to
Yep.
be engaged by us in kind of a dialogue so that they appreciate these issues quicker than they ought to be doing. Because
We have to bring them. We have to
yes.
bring to the solution.
Yeah.
The solution cannot reach
So
to
we
them, but
bring
we have
some
to bring to the
solutions,
solution.
we identify them, and we throw it open to them and sensitize them to take some initiatives and guide them, help them professionally
Yeah.
to do that. Yes, I think it's a wonderful thought, and I think we will take it up. We will take it up in some fashion, and I'm looking forward to cooperation from your end and all young professionals who have
Definitely.
energy to throw open an idea and pursue it. So I welcome all of them to be a part of this forum, and we will continuously make an effort to contribute our little bit in the whole
Of
overall
course.
urban management system. Thank you very much, Mr. Ahmed, for
You are welcome.
Your remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed, and thank you, Mehta sir. So I think with this, I would like to bring the webinar to a close. Before closing, I would like to inform everyone about the Every Friday webinar series. It's being organized by the Peria School of Architecture, New Delhi. The webinars are a platform for young professionals to express their ideas and is aimed at students and young architects. Further, we will also be running short-term courses in summer schools, and the information for which will be released very soon. With this, I would like to end today's webinar. I thank Samreen for a wonderful presentation, and I also thank all the participants. Please have a good day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tushar. Thank you, Mehta sir, for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.